Bob Brookover joins us. Bob, first time we're having you on the air, man. Great to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mark.
Absolutely, man. Great to have you on with us. First off, just some X's and O's about that roster. 53 men, 60 are allowed. Why'd they go 53 out of the gate?
You know, I guess because they're going to see if they can add. I'm not guessing. They're going to add some as they go along here, see what comes available. Like you do on a football roster. You know, everybody makes a big deal, the 53-man roster, but it's never really the 53-man roster. It's just really the same way in baseball at the end of spring training. You know, you put your 26-man roster together, but you're always looking to see what else is out there. And I'm sure that the Phillies are going to add and maybe subtract from this 53 at some point. You know, but this leaves them plenty of room to add. You know, the 7 guys are going to add, probably unlikely they're going to have that much impact anyway.
We noticed Bryson Stott wasn't on this list. We noticed Mickey Moniak wasn't on this list. How much more work do those guys have to do before they actually are able to, break into the majors a little bit?
Yeah, neither one of those guys was at the point where they were going to be major league players this year. So I'm thinking that they thought with those guys, hey, you know what, why force them into this? The hard part is that means they're not going to have any baseball at all to play this summer. I know from talking to people, they're going to really try to put something like the instructional league is going to be heavier than it is, and then there's some hope, although that could be going out the window as we speak with the spread of coronavirus. There was hope that there'd be a Florida league like there is an Arizona fall league, that would expand, but we'll see if that happens. Those guys just aren't. They had not advanced yet enough in the minors. Moniak Stott was probably going to start at Clearwater this year. Moniak was going to start at Lehigh, was going to be at Lehigh Valley, but he's got to prove that he's a big leaguer, and he hasn't done that yet.
Mm-hmm. Now, I was reading an article you did last week about the 60-game season more or less getting approved and things are going to get up and running. You have some reservations about baseball doing it this way.
Well, I have reservations from the beginning. I've had reservations about having a season without fans because I'm a big proponent of fans just add, so much to, the theater of a game. I've watched the KBO. It's okay. I finally had reached the point where, okay, yeah, it's better than nothing. But my biggest reservation right now is just, there's 1/3 of the league is in 4 states where the biggest hotspots in the country are right now. And I just dread, and I got an email from somebody saying you should die in Joe Biden's basement, but whatever, whatever. If one person, and it doesn't even have to be a player, it could be a player gets it, gives it to somebody in his family, and God forbid that person were to die. This is going to be the most regrettable thing ever.
Right.
I hope that doesn't happen, but I have that fear for sure.
Brookie, how does a 60-game season suit this team well? And conversely, how is a 60-game season a detriment to the players that they have?
Well, I mean, it's helps them in that under Dave Kapler, they were a great 60-game team. Now let's see if they can keep that up. When it's a great time to be a 60-game team, they would have won the division last year after 60 games. But it's also, having said that, they did that last year despite Aaron Nola getting off to a really slow start. Zach Wheeler got off to a slow start last year with the Mets. He had a 4.6 something ERA through 60 games last year. Bryce Harper didn't get off to a great power start last year. His power came the second half of the season. You have to. It's a sprint instead of a marathon. Now, will Joe Girardi have them ready? You would hope so. There should be an urgency. Joe Girardi is going to have an urgency anyway because that's just the type of manager he is. The thing that, and it's no different than a 162-game season, you wonder if there's enough pitching. It was the same thing we were wondering when they went to spring training 1. You wonder the same thing as we start spring training 2. They need Jake Arrieta to be a solid number 3. If the two guys I mentioned, Noel and Wheeler, come out and pitch the way they hope they do. If he's a solid number 3, they need a surprise or two in that bullpen. Very important to have somebody come out of, that they didn't really expect to come on and pitch very well for them. They need that really badly because on paper, they're not as good as the Nationals, and they're not as good as the Braves, and they're probably not as good as the Mets in terms of pitching. So they need some surprises to make this work and get in the playoffs. I really like their chances if we had gone to the 6 teams in each league playoff format, or 7 teams in each league, I guess. The 14, or what was it, 16? I forget now even. It was 16, right?
16, yes.
What they initially proposed. Yeah, 16. But that doesn't exist anymore. I like their chances in that. I'm not sure I like their chances nearly as much in this format.
All right. Speaking of Bob Brookover, Inquirer.com and the Comcast Business Hotline Beyond Fast. The other thing here, you said they're going to need some surprises. How much of a surprise can an Alec Boehm be, or a Spencer Howard in the rotation, for instance?
Well, if I'm them, I definitely, obviously you got to see in these next 3 weeks, we're going to see where those guys are all at and how good of shape they kept themselves in and how ready they are. But if they look ready, if they kept themselves ready, I go with Spencer Howard in the rotation, and I go with Alec Boehm on my roster, especially in a roster that has a designated hitter. I just do that because, what do you got to lose in a 60-game season? You go for it. And you want these guys to develop anyway. They're not going to develop playing in taxi squad games in Lehigh Valley. Get them on the roster. See what they have. Roll that dice. If it's ever a year to roll the dice, see what those two guys got. And I think that creates some excitement in the team too if you do that. Where people, they'll tune in, and obviously they won't go to the ballpark, but people will tune in to see. Phillies fans will tune in to see Spencer Howard's debut, and they'll tune in to see Alec Boehm, what they've got there.
Brookie, to that end, besides the rule changes that you just mentioned that are coming into the game, how different is the game going to look during this 60-game sprint, and with the limited amount of time they had to get ready for it?
We should, and you hope that you're going to see a real intensity out of the gate. The baseball season evolves, and a lot has been made about how the Nationals would not have even made the playoffs last year. But after 60 games, they were one of the worst teams in baseball last year. Didn't come on to the second half, and it happens a lot. So there should be an intensity. I mean, I've heard it talked about. This in the NBA, that bubble, the intensity that's going to come out of there with the sprint season. I think you should see that in baseball too. It's going to be September baseball right out of the chute. It should be.
Bob, what have you been told as far as how you'll be able to cover the team this year?
Well, we're supposed to have a Zoom call tomorrow with the Phillies people going over some of the we know some of the protocol. It's going to be. You're allowed in the ballpark 4 hours before the game. You got to be out 90 minutes after the last Zoom call. We'll be in the ballpark. It'll all be done all interviews will be done by Zoom. And with no more than 35 writers in our media in the press box or are going to be credentialed, I should say, because some of those 35 are going to be photographers. So it's good. I'm interested to see what it's going to be like. We have to wear masks at all times. We'll have our temperatures checked when we go in. I think they're still working out some things in terms of, it's going to affect me as much because I'm not the main travel writer for the Inquirer, but how you travel and things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see. I've covered baseball for 27 years, I think, and this is going to be unlike any of the other 27.
Bob, they're using Citizens Bank Park and Coca-Cola Park to help split up the squad a little bit?
Right. The taxi squad will be at Lehigh Valley.
Okay. All right. Makes sense.
All right. Bob, do you think this team has a legitimate shot at doing something? Like you mentioned, the Nationals, Mets, Braves, all have better pitching. All were ahead of the Phillies last year. Have they done enough to not only catapult those teams, but maybe get themselves a playoff spot?
Yeah, I think that was the question going into regular spring training, and it really hasn't changed. I mean, because I didn't think they had gotten enough pitching to be in the regular format playoffs. The one thing I will say about Joe Girardi, if you go back, and I did this before the first spring training, so I don't remember all the numbers, but one of the things Joe Girardi did very well during his time as the Yankees manager was manage his bullpen. In fact, I did a thing before the original spring training. Every year of his 10 years as manager, his bullpen had a lower ERA than his starting rotation. Every year he was there. So he's very good at managing a bullpen. At least his track record shows he has been. He's going to, he's in an interview with MLB Network last week, he's admitted that this is going to be new territory for him too, in terms of not wanting to wear out his starters, but also not wanting to wear out his relievers. Every manager in baseball has a big challenge handling their pitching staffs this year, and Girardi at least has some experience in that regard.
Another thing on that, speaking with Bob Brookover, Inquirer.com, is how will this season affect pitchers? Because I know it's spring training 2.0, but usually it takes longer than a month to stretch these guys out, get them ready for a 6, 7, maybe even 8 inning game. So how do you see this playing out? Will pitchers start out 4 or 5 innings and then go from there? Longer relievers will get more playing time. How do you think it plays out?
I don't think we're going to see many. Of course, in this day and age, we don't see many guys going past 5-8 anymore anyway. But, I think 4 and 5 innings are going to be the norm out of the first 2 weeks of the season. By mid-August, you would hope that you'd see some guys going 6, 7 innings. But that's what we're going to see a lot of. Yes, we're going to see a lot of bullpen games. They're just going to – it's just the way it's going to have to be. And the teams that have the deepest bullpen are going to benefit from this. The one thing I was curious to see from that 53-man roster, they still have David Robertson on the DL right now. He's not on that 53-man roster. If he's right, and that was something they were counting on last year. If he's right and he comes out now, how right can he be after all this time missed? But if he's the David Robertson, even 80% of the David Robertson that pitched in the American League for all those years, he could be a real difference maker now. But that's not probably going to happen. It wasn't supposed to happen until the middle of August anyway. But the middle of August now is still early in the season, relatively speaking. That would be a huge surprise if that could happen for the Phillies.
And can you confirm? I know we mentioned Citizens Bank Park, we mentioned Coca-Cola Park in Lehigh Valley. What are they using FDR Park for?
I don't know if they are. I mean, that's one of the things we're going to hear about tomorrow too. I think, I guess they can send people over there just to get some work, especially early on when they're supposed to be bringing these guys in different, not in full squad mode. They can go over there and take infield, take BP,
go fishing,
go fishing, go golfing if you want. Golf course over there.
Yeah, golf's gone now, unfortunately.
Oh, it is?
That's what I heard. Yeah.
When you stop covering the Eagles, I used to drive by the golf course all the time. There's no golf there. This is news to me. I'm learning something here.
Bob, what's the word that we're going to get on JT Realmuto, and when are we going to get it? Do you think they're going to come out with something soon? Do you think they're going to sign him? How's this going to play out in your mind?
It's really I think they're going to try really hard to sign him, and to me, you really have to sign him after giving up Sixto Sanchez as your he was, if not your premier prospect, your second best prospect when you traded him. And in addition to that, you gave up Jorge Fowler, who's a developing catcher who 2 years from now you can be saying this guy's one of the 5 best catchers in baseball because he's got the potential to be that good. So to me, you almost have to sign this guy. I know that they want to badly sign him. The question is, how much does JT want? JT and his agency want to establish a new market for catchers. They feel like catchers have been shortchanged for years because teams look at them as, well, they don't play as many games. We shouldn't have to pay them. They're more injury risk because it's a hard job. And he wants to change that, and the agency wants to change that So, but there's risk for him too in terms of if he doesn't have a great short season here. There's also the risk of the market is not going to be probably what it would have been if coronavirus hadn't happened, because teams have taken hits financially. So, the Phillies are going to try really hard here. He's got to make a decision, what's in my best interest. I think they're going to resign him because I know John Middleton loves JT Realmuto. John Middleton was a wrestler, and JT Realmuto has a big wrestling background. He didn't wrestle in high school because he got too much into baseball, but he comes from a real wrestling family, one of the best in the history of the sport. And I know John Middleton loves this guy. I'll be surprised if John Middleton lets this guy get away.
Yeah, I would be also. Bob Brookover, great talking to you again, man. We hope to talk to you again soon. Really appreciate you coming on with us.
Anytime, guys.
Mark Farzetta with Bob Cooney and Jamie Lynch. Mornings on 97.5 The Fanatic. Philadelphia.